Ambassador Caleb Turner stood before the Galactic Council, his steely gaze locked on Empress Murloc. The fate of humanity hinged on this moment. For too long, the authoritarian Jem'Hadar Empire had subjugated other species, their advanced tech and ruthless military might crushing all resistance. But now, in the year 2357, Earth refused to bow any longer. "Your Majesty, I come with a final ultimatum," Caleb declared, his voice unwavering. "Humanity demands the Jem'Hadar surrender unconditionally and grant us a seat at this galactic table. If you refuse, we are prepared to unleash a weapon capable of igniting supernovas at will. Entire star systems will be vaporized." Murloc's eyes narrowed. "You bluff, human. No such device exists." In response, Caleb activated a holo recording. The council watched in stunned silence as a distant star flared and exploded, wiping out an uninhabited system in seconds, proof of humanity's devastating new power. Chaos erupted in the chambers. Subject species, long cowed by Jem'Hadar rule, now saw a chance to resist. Some even called for the Empire to accept Earth's demands. Murloc's own advisors urged caution, insisting the human threat was all too real. Facing open revolt and the unthinkable destructive potential in human hands, the Empress was cornered. Through gritted teeth, she invited Caleb to begin formal negotiations. Yet even as she spoke, Murloc was already plotting, secretly dispatching Jem'Hadar operatives to infiltrate human space and neutralize this so-called supernova bomb by any means necessary. A new game had begun, one of galactic brinkmanship and intrigue, with the fate of entire civilizations hanging in the balance. Earth had made its move. Now humanity awaited the Empire's response, as a galaxy held its breath on the threshold between peace and cataclysm. 20 years earlier, the Hawking Deep Space Observatory hummed with activity as Dr. Marcus Keller pored over the latest gamma-ray burst data. The supernova's afterglow played across his display, bathing the cluttered lab in an ethereal blue light. Marcus sipped cold coffee, his brow furrowed in concentration. Something about this explosion was different. He enhanced the exotic energy signature, comparing it to the observatory's vast database. No match. A thrill raced down Marcus's spine as the implications sank in. This was no natural stellar cataclysm. Someone, or something, had killed a star. The next morning, Marcus burst into Admiral Jace Novak's office, a datapad trembling in his hands. "Sir, I think I've found evidence of artificial supernova induction." Jace's eyes widened as he scanned the findings. The military applications were immediate and game-changing. Within a week, Project Prometheus was born, a clandestine initiative to unravel the physics behind the galaxy's most devastating weapon. Months turned to years as Marcus and his hand-picked team of brilliant scientists chased the elusive breakthrough. Failed trials and scorched lab equipment marked their glacial progress. Pressure mounted as the Jem'Hadar Empire's aggression escalated. Skirmishes flared along the border of human space, each one inching the galaxy closer to war. Then a leap forward. Marcus stared in disbelief at the glowing containment field, hardly daring to breathe. A swirling vortex of exotic matter danced before him, the key to unmaking suns. When the prototype probe pierced the heart of a red giant and ignited a supernova, cheers erupted across Prometheus Labs. The impossible was now terrifyingly real. As hostilities with the Jem'Hadar reached a fever pitch, Marcus worked feverishly to perfect the weapon. Sleep became a forgotten luxury, the scientists pushing themselves to the brink of collapse. Miniaturizing the device proved a daunting challenge, each failure more costly as the enemy fleet massed on the borders. Finally, success. A compact supernova bomb, no larger than a torpedo, lay before Marcus, a device to humble empires and reshape the cosmic balance of power. He watched, numb with exhaustion, as Ambassador Caleb Turner brandished humanity's new trump card before the Galactic Council. The supernova bomb was no longer Earth's gravest secret, it was their declaration of galactic arrival. As the Council erupted into chaos and the Jem'Hadar ambassadors seethed with nearly unleashed rage, Marcus felt a chill ripple through him. The universe had changed in a fundamental way, and there was no going back. The hum of Citadel Station's life support systems filled the air as Admiral Jace Novak strode into the command center. Holo displays flared to life, painting the room in a kaleidoscope of tactical data. Jace's eyes locked on the ominous red icons amassing at the edge of human space, a Jem'Hadar battle fleet of unrivaled size and power. Empress Murloc is done playing games, Captain Elias Hale said grimly, taking his place at Jace's side. She's called our bluff. Jace nodded, his mind focused. And now we're going to show her it's no bluff at all. Prepare the Supernova weapon. As technicians scrambled to bring the station's devastating armament online, reports flooded in of Jem'Hadar raids against human colonies. Jace's fingers tightened on the edge of the console. The time for half measures had passed. Target the Kroval system, he ordered, his voice hard as steel. An uninhabited sector in the heart of Jem'Hadar space. Elias hesitated only a moment before relaying the command. Deep within Citadel Station, the Supernova weapon thrummed with power, exotic energies swirling in its containment field. On the main display, a distant star flared and died, consumed by the human-made cataclysm. Gasps echoed through the command center. They had done the unthinkable, wielded the power of suns as a weapon of war. A heavy silence descended, broken only by the insistent ping of incoming transmissions. Jem'Hadar ships were disengaging across the front, falling back to defensive positions. For a moment, it seemed their gambit had worked. Then alarms blared through the station. "Admiral, we have a breach in the weapons lab," Elias shouted over the klaxons. "Multiple Jem'Hadar biosigns detected." Jace paled as the implication sank in. "They're going after the Supernova weapon. Stop them, Elias, whatever it takes." Elias sprinted through the chaos-strewn corridors, pulse pounding in his ears. He burst into the lab to find a scene of carnage. Bodies sprawled amid shattered equipment, scorch marks seared across the walls. At the center of it all stood a Jem'Hadar female, a wicked blade in each hand. Recognition flashed in Elias's eyes. Zalara, I should have known Murloc would send her best assassin. Zalara lunged, her movements a whirl of deadly precision. Elias met her head-on, blocking and countering in a brutal dance. They traded blows across the wreckage of the lab, evenly matched and utterly ruthless. As Elias parried a viciously quick slash, he caught a glimpse of Zalara's wrist computer. It pulsed with active data streams, siphoning information on the Supernova weapon. Cold dread settled in his gut. If Murloc got her hands on that data... With a roar of purpose, Elias drove Zalara back in a flurry of strikes. She gave ground, her face a mask of cold concentration. Then, in a burst of smoke, she vanished. A Jem'Hadar transporter beam whisked her away, the stolen secrets in hand. Elias slammed a fist into the ruined console, his breath coming hard. They had walked right into Murloc's trap. The Supernova weapon's power was no longer their exclusive domain. Back in the command center, Jace absorbed Elias's grim report with a heavy heart. The balance had shifted. The Jem'Hadar would be hunting that weapon with everything they had. Citadel Station was no longer safe. "Take the weapon and go to ground," Jace ordered, his voice leaden. "The NSS Phantom is yours. Stay one step ahead of Murloc and keep our last ace in the hole safe." Elias nodded grimly, the weight of worlds pressing down on him. As the Phantom slipped its moorings and plunged into the cold depths of space, he couldn't shake the sense that their most desperate fight was just beginning. The Jem'Hadar were coming, and there would be no quarter given in the battle for humanity's future. The NSS Phantom glided silently through the inky void, its stealth systems masking any trace of its passage. Captain Elias Hale stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. A sea of red dots swarmed across the map, Jem'Hadar warships hunting relentlessly. "Another jump, Lieutenant," Elias ordered, his voice tight. "Random vector, maximum range." The ship's engines thrummed as it leapt into hyperspace. Elias allowed himself a moment's respite, running a hand through his disheveled hair. They'd narrowly escaped 3 ambushes in the past week alone. How long could they keep this up? On the Jem'Hadar throne world, Empress Murloc paced before her war council. Admiral Zarkon's voice boomed through the chamber. "Your Majesty, every moment we delay gives the humans time to perfect their weapon," he growled. We must strike now, before it's too late. Murmurs of assent rippled through the assembled nobles. Murlock's face hardened. And risk galvanizing other species against us? We cannot afford a multi-front war. Better that than annihilation. Zarkon hit his fist on the table. Your weakness invites our doom. As the argument raged, Princess Triga slipped away unnoticed. In her private chambers, she activated a heavily encrypted channel. Ambassador Turner, she whispered, I have information you need to hear. Caleb's holographic form flickered to life. Your Highness, what news? My mother faces mounting pressure for war. Admiral Zarkon pushes for a preemptive strike against Earth. Triga's eyes darted nervously. I can provide details of their plans, but I need assurances. Asylum for myself and others who wish to defect. Caleb nodded gravely. I'll take it to my superiors immediately. Thank you for your courage, Princess. The transmission cut off as alarms blared through the palace. Triga's blood ran cold. Had she been discovered? She raced to the throne room, arriving just as Zarkon's commandos burst in. Plasma fire erupted, cutting down Murlock's guards. The Empress herself crouched behind an overturned table, returning fire with fierce dedication. For the Empire! Zarkon roared, leveling his weapon at Murlock's head. A warning from Triga's lips died as loyalist troops swarmed in, overwhelming the would-be usurpers. Zarkon snarled in frustration, activating a personal shield as he fled. In the aftermath, Murlock surveyed the carnage with burning eyes. No more half measures, she hissed. Recall Kraylock and Zalara. Find the Phantom and destroy it. Show humanity the true might of the Gem Hadar. Light years away, alarms blared through the Phantom's corridors. Elias sprinted to the bridge, his heart pounding. Multiple contacts, his tactical officer shouted. It's Kraylock's armada, sir. They found us. Elias's mind raced. How had they pierced their stealth? The stolen data? Of course. All power to engines and shields, he ordered. Prepare to... His words were cut off as a new fleet materialized. Sleek, deadly ships unlike any he'd seen before. This is Operative Zalara, a cold voice rang out. Surrender the Supernova weapon or be destroyed. Elias's eyes widened as he realized the stakes. Kraylock, Zalara, and the Phantom, locked in a three-way dance of death with the fate of galaxies hanging in the balance. His hand hovered over the weapons console. One option remained. He began the arming sequence for their doomsday device, knowing the next few moments would decide the future of humanity and the Gem Hadar Empire itself. Elias's finger hovered over the weapon console, a bead of sweat tracing down his temple. The supernova bomb hummed with latent power, ready to unleash cosmic devastation. He took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. Patch me through to both fleets, he ordered, voice tight with tension. As the comm channel crackled to life, Elias spoke with carefully measured words. This is Captain Elias Hale of the NSS Phantom. I have a fully armed supernova weapon locked on Karana Prime. Unless Empress Murlock agrees to an immediate ceasefire and peace negotiations, we will detonate. Silence stretched across the void. Then a familiar cold voice cut through the stillness. This is Operative Zalara. Your bluff is noted, human. Stand down or be destroyed. Before Elias could respond, another transmission broke through. Captain Hale. The imperious tones of Empress Murlock herself filled the bridge. You have our attention. I invite you to Karana Prime for face-to-face talks. Come alone, or your ship will be atomized the moment it enters our space. Elias exchanged glances with his senior staff. Chief Engineer Freya Singh spoke up, her voice low. The weapon's ready, sir, but using it, there's no coming back from that. Gunnery Officer Alex Munoz nodded grimly. Whatever you decide, Captain, we're with you. Elias squared his shoulders. Prepare my shuttle. Alex, you have command of the Phantom. If anything goes wrong... He left the implications unspoken. Minutes later, Elias's shuttle pierced Karana's atmosphere, escorted by a phalanx of Gem Hadar fighters. The alien world sprawled beneath him, a tapestry of impossible geometries and crystalline spires. As they approached the Imperial Palace, Elias's grip tightened on the detonator in his pocket. Murlock's Praetorian guard met him at the landing pad, their chitinous armor gleaming in the harsh sunlight. They led him through labyrinthine corridors, past chambers filled with exotic alien technologies that defied human understanding. Finally, the throne room doors slid open. Empress Murlock sat atop a dais of writhing metal, her multifaceted eyes fixed on Elias. He strode forward, acutely aware of the guards flanking him. "You play a dangerous game, human," Murlock's voice reverberated through the chamber. Elias met her gaze unflinchingly. "No game, Your Majesty. These are our terms. Immediate withdrawal from occupied worlds, release of political prisoners, and humanity's right to self-governance. We want a seat on the Galactic Council." A ripple of outrage swept through the assembled courtiers. Murlock raised a clawed hand, silencing them. "You would threaten us with annihilation, then demand concessions?" "Your forces have pushed us to the brink," Elias countered. "We're fighting for our very existence." Before Murlock could reply, the floor shook with a thunderous explosion. Alarms blared throughout the palace. A Praetorian burst into the chamber, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Your Majesty, we're under attack. Zalara's forces have breached the outer defenses." Chaos erupted. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Zalara's rebels engaged the palace guards. Elias dove for cover, his hand closing around the detonator. He found himself pinned down beside a tall Jem'Hadar in ornate armor, General Sarek, if the insignia was any indication. Sarek's eyes narrowed as he took in Elias's defensive posture. With lightning speed, he lashed out, wresting the detonator from Elias's grasp. "Men!" he bellowed. "Seize the Empress! Today we reclaim the Empire's honor!" Elias watched in horror as Sarek's troops turned on their own, subduing Murlock and her loyal guards. The general's voice boomed across the chamber. "The age of appeasement is over. We will crush these human vermin and—" A blinding flash cut him off as a section of the ceiling caved in. Through the breach poured Zalara's elite commandos, their weapons spitting death in all directions. Elias scrambled frantically, searching for a way out of the crossfire. The Supernova detonator lay somewhere in the chaos, its awesome power now a wildcard in this battle for galactic supremacy. As energy weapons crisscrossed the throne room and the screams of the wounded filled the air, Elias realized the magnitude of his miscalculation. He had sought to force peace through the threat of ultimate destruction. Instead, he had ignited a powder keg that threatened to consume not just Karana Prime, but the entire Jem'Hadar Empire. Empire. Elias's eyes darted frantically across the chaos-filled throne room, searching for any means of escape. Plasma bolts sizzled past his head as he dove behind an overturned console. "Captain!" A familiar voice crackled through his comm. "We've breached the palace defenses. Eastern corridor, 2 levels down." Relief flooded through him. His extraction team had made it. Elias sprinted for the exit, dodging energy blasts and grappling combatants. He burst into the hallway, nearly colliding with Chief Engineer Singh. "The device?" Freya asked, her face smeared with soot. Elias shook his head grimly. "Lost in the firefight. We need to move. Now." They raced through twisting corridors, the sounds of battle echoing all around them. Twice they were forced to take cover as squads of Sarek's troops thundered past. Finally, they reached a vast hangar bay. Their shuttle sat on the far side, engines already spooling up. "Go!" Elias shouted, laying down covering fire as his team sprinted for the craft. He was meters from the ramp when a lithe figure dropped from the shadows above. Zalara. The Jem'Hadar assassin's eyes gleamed with predatory focus. "The weapon!" she hissed. "Where is it?" Elias didn't waste breath on a response. He lunged forward, aiming a vicious strike at her midsection. Zalara twisted away, her own attack barely missing his throat. They grappled brutally, neither willing to yield. Beyond the hangar doors, explosions rocked the palace as rebel and loyalist forces clashed. Elias caught a glimpse of his team returning fire, buying him precious seconds. Zalara slammed an elbow into his ribs, driving the air from his lungs. As he stumbled, she pivoted for a killing blow. At the last instant, Elias ducked under her guard. He seized her arm, using her own momentum to hurl her into a nearby fuel container. The impact left Zalara dazed. Elias sprinted for the shuttle, diving through the hatch as it lifted off. Plasma bolts peppered the hull as Sarek's troops poured into the hangar. "Go, go!" Elias bellowed. The shuttle rocketed out of the bay, climbing steeply into Karana's upper atmosphere. Through the viewports, Elias saw the orbital battle raging, Rebel and Imperial ships locked in desperate combat. His communications officer's voice cut through the din. "Sir, the Phantoms dropped out of hyperspace. They're moving to cover our escape vector." Elias allowed himself a small smile. Admiral Novak had come through. As they climbed higher, the NSS Phantom's sleek form persisted against the star-filled blackness. Its point defense batteries opened up, scattering the pursuing fighters. Minutes later, they docked safely in the Phantom's hangar. Elias strode onto the bridge where Admiral Novak awaited him. "Report," Elias ordered, collapsing into the command chair. Novak's weathered face was grim. "Sarek's coup is falling apart. The Empress escaped to a secure location. Neither faction recognizes his authority." Before Elias could respond, the main view screen flickered to life. Empress Murlock's face filled the display, her multifaceted eyes glittering with terrifying fury. "People of the Jem'Hadar Empire," she intoned, "our unity has been tested by treason and betrayal. To preserve our civilization, I will temporarily step aside. An emergency council will guide us as we seek a new path forward, one of peace with humanity." Elias exchanged a startled glance with Novak. This changed everything. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "we're receiving coordinates. It's Archinox Station." Elias's mind raced. The neutral trading hub, teeming with representatives from 100 species. The perfect place for delicate negotiations. "Plot a course," he ordered, "but keep us at battle readiness. This isn't over yet." As the Phantom slipped into hyperspace, Elias gazed at the gleaming cylinder of the Supernova device. Its awesome power had brought them to the brink of annihilation. Now, it might just forge a lasting peace. Days later, Elias stood in the towering central chamber of Archinox Station. Alien dignitaries filled the tiered seating, a riot of strange forms and colors. At the center, a table surrounded by shimmering force fields. Here, humanity would face the Jem'Hadar leadership. He took his seat as the Jem'Hadar delegation filed in. Their faces were impassive, but Elias sensed the tension radiating from them. A silver-furred being, the Galactic Council's chief mediator, stepped forward. "Honored representatives," it began, voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We convene to broker peace between humanity and the Jem'Hadar Empire. Our first order of business, the Supernova weapon." Elias leaned forward, steeling himself for the negotiations ahead. In the shadows of the upper galleries, unnoticed by the delegates below, a cloaked figure watched with calculating eyes. Zalara had not yet played her final hand. Elias's eyes locked onto the cloaked figure in the shadows, his instincts screaming danger. Before he could react, the mediator's amplified voice cut through the chamber. "We will now hear the Galactic Council's proposal for the decommissioning of humanity's Supernova weapon." A ripple of murmurs swept through the assembled dignitaries. Elias tore his gaze away from the gallery, forcing himself to focus on the negotiations at hand. The silver-furred mediator continued, outlining a plan for complete dismantling under neutral supervision. Admiral Zarkon, the Jem'Hadar hardliner, smacked his palm on the table. "Unacceptable! We demand the weapon be turned over to Imperial forces immediately." "And risk further aggression?" Elias countered, leaning forward. "The Council's proposal ensures transparency and—" A comm chime interrupted him. "Captain," Freya's voice crackled through, "we've detected an unauthorized access attempt in the weapon storage bay." Elias's blood ran cold. He stood abruptly, locking eyes with the Jem'Hadar princess across the table. "Triga," he said urgently, "your intelligence was right. Zalara's here." Chaos erupted in the chamber as Elias sprinted for the exit, Triga close behind. They raced through Archinox's winding corridors, the station's alarms blaring to life around them. They burst into the storage bay to find Zalara's commandos engaged in a firefight with the Phantom's security team. The assassin herself stood at a control panel, fingers flying as she attempted to override the weapon's safeguards. Elias drew his sidearm, taking cover behind a stack of crates. "It's over, Zalara," he shouted. "Stand down!" A cruel laugh was his only answer as plasma bolts sizzled past. Triga's voice rang out, barking orders in the Jem'Hadar tongue. A squad of her loyalists poured into the bay, flanking Zalara's position. Caught in a crossfire, the commandos faltered. Elias saw his opening and charged, tackling Zalara away from the controls. They grappled fiercely, rolling across the deck plating. "You fool!" Zalara hissed, her elbow connecting with Elias's jaw. This technology could reshape the galaxy. Elias twisted, pinning her arm behind her back. And how many worlds would burn in the process? A stun blast from Triga's weapon finally subdued the assassin. As Zalara's unconscious form slumped to the deck, Elias's gaze fell on the console. His heart sank. "She managed to download partial schematics," he said grimly. Triga's mandibles clicked in agitation. "We must inform the council immediately." Hours later, Elias stood before the hastily reconvened delegates. He detailed Zalara's infiltration and narrow escape, watching their alien faces contort with a mixture of shock and outrage. While immediate disaster was averted, he concluded, we cannot ignore the implications. Zalara possesses fragments of supernova technology. Until she's apprehended, that knowledge poses a grave threat to galactic stability. The chamber erupted in heated debate. Elias caught snippets of accusations, demands for humanity to face consequences, and calls for increased military readiness. He exchanged a weary glance with Ambassador Turner, who had joined him at the podium. "If I may," Turner's steady voice cut through the din, "this incident only underscores the need for unity. Let us not allow fear to derail the peace process we fought so hard to achieve." As Turner began outlining a framework for the Archinox Accords, Elias's mind raced. The immediate crisis had passed, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Somewhere out there, Zalara was plotting her next move, and he would be ready. 5 years after the tense negotiations on Archinox Station, Captain Elias Hale stood on the bridge of the NSS Peacekeeper, gazing out at the vast expanse of space. The viewport framed a desolate Jem'Hadar colony world, its surface scarred by recent conflict. "Status report," Elias ordered, his voice tight with fatigue. Lieutenant Commander Chen, his tactical officer, responded grimly. "Sir, we've confirmed 12 Peacekeeper casualties at the monitoring outpost. Zarkon's forces struck hard and fast." Elias's eyes sharp. The fragile peace they'd fought so hard to achieve was unraveling before his eyes. He turned to address his crew when a priority transmission cut through the somber atmosphere. Admiral Novak's hologram materialized on the bridge, her expression grave. "Captain Hale, we have a situation. Intelligence suggests Zarkon's rebels have obtained supernova weapon schematics." Elias felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "Zalara," he breathed. Novak nodded. "It's likely. Your new orders are to infiltrate the Jem'Hadar black markets. Find the source of this leak and shut it down. You'll be working with a Jem'Hadar double agent. Codename, Tella." Hours later, Elias found himself in the grimy underbelly of Kaznor, a lawless trading hub on the fringes of Jem'Hadar space. He moved through crowded streets, alien faces blurring past as he made his way to the rendezvous point. A hooded figure emerged from the shadows of a narrow alley. "You're late, human," a distinctly female voice hissed. Elias tensed, hand instinctively moving towards his concealed weapon. "Tella, I presume." The figure lowered her hood, revealing the striking features of a Jem'Hadar assassin. Her eyes glinted with predatory intelligence. "Follow me," she commanded. "Zarkon's lieutenants gather tonight. We don't have much time." They wove through the bustling crowds, descending deeper into Kaznor's criminal underworld. Tella led them to a nondescript door, guarded by 2 hulking Jem'Hadar. She flashed a series of hand signals, and the guards stepped aside. Inside, the air was thick with exotic smoke and the low murmur of conspiratorial voices. Elias's eyes swept the room, cataloging faces and potential threats. At the center, a holographic display flickered to life, revealing schematics that made his blood run cold. "It's true," he whispered. "They've recreated the supernova ignition technology." Tella's voice was a barely audible hiss. "Worse, this is only the beginning. Zarkon's cult seeks to reignite total war." A booming voice cut through the din. "My brothers!" Admiral Zarkon himself strode into view, his scarred face twisted with fanatical zeal. "Too long have we cowered beneath the human boot. With this weapon, we shall cleanse the galaxy of their taint, starting with Earth itself." The room erupted in cheers. Elias felt Tella's hand on his arm, pulling him towards the exit. "We've seen enough," she muttered. "It's time to end this." Days blurred together as Elias and Tella raced across the sector, exposing Zarkon's hidden research facilities. Each victory felt hollow as the true scale of the threat became clear. It all led to this moment, infiltrating Zarkon's fortress base, deep in an uncharted nebula. Alarms blared as they fought their way through waves of fanatics. Elias's muscles screamed with exertion as he ducked behind a console, plasma bolts sizzling past. "The launch chamber is just ahead," Tella shouted, her own weapons spitting death at their pursuers. They burst through the reinforced doors, only to find themselves surrounded. Zarkon stood before the massive Supernova warhead, a triumphant sneer on his face. "You're too late," he growled. "The new era begins now." Elias locked eyes with Tella. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. With grim grit, he keyed in the remote activation sequence they'd prepared as a last resort. The fortress shuddered as alarms shrieked to life. Zarkon's eyes widened in horror. "What have you done?" "Overloading your quantum singularity," Elias replied, his voice cold. "This ends here." Chaos erupted as Zarkon's forces scrambled to evacuate. Elias and Tella fought their way to her stealth fighter, the station disintegrating around them. As they rocketed clear of the implosion, Elias watched the fortress and its deadly cargo collapse into oblivion. The adrenaline faded, leaving only a bone-deep weariness. Elias slumped in his seat, the weight of their actions settling heavily upon him. "We won," Tella said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. Elias stared out at the stars, his reflection haggard in the viewport. "Did we?" he asked softly. "Or have we just fed the cycle of escalation?" As they set course for Peacekeeper Command, Elias knew the hardest decisions still lay ahead. The fragile peace they'd fought for hung by a thread, with forces on both sides pushing for more aggressive action. He closed his eyes, steeling himself for the battles to come. Elias's eyes snapped open as the Peacekeeper's proximity alarms blared. He rushed to the bridge, heart pounding. "Report!" he barked, taking in the chaotic scene before him. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across the tactical display. "Sir, we're detecting multiple warp signatures. It's an invasion fleet." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a vast armada of sleek predatory ships. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent sheen Elias had never seen before. "Acadians," he breathed, recognizing the ancient sigils emblazoned on their flanks. Admiral Novak's hologram materialized, her face grim. "Captain Hale, the Separatists have made their move. The Acadian Empire is leading a full-scale offensive against human territories." Elias's mind raced. "The Archinox Accords—" "In tatters," Novak cut him off. "We've lost contact with dozens of worlds. I'm recalling you to lead our rapid response fleet." "But Admiral, what about Zalara, the Supernova tech?" "We don't have that luxury anymore. I'm assigning Commander Singh to continue that investigation. Your orders are to buy us time, whatever the cost." The hologram winked out, leaving Elias staring at the approaching armada. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "All hands, battle stations, helm, plot, and intercept course." The Peacekeepers surged forward, joined by a ragtag assemblage of human ships. For days, they fought a desperate rearguard action, trying to slow the Acadian advance. But it wasn't enough. Elias watched in horror as the view screen showed another human world falling to the relentless siege. Fires raged across continents as millions fled in panic. We can't hold them, Chen said, his voice cracking with exhaustion. There's just too many. A priority transmission cut through the despair. Captain Hale, this is Admiral Novak. Fall back to Mavros immediately. We're making our stand there. Mavros. The agri-world was humanity's lifeline, feeding trillions across the Alliance. If it fell, the Peacekeeper limped into orbit around the verdant planet, joining the last remnants of the human fleet. Elias gazed at the twin suns of the binary system, an idea forming. Get me a secure channel to Admiral Novak, he ordered. I think I know how we can stop this. Hours later, Elias stood on the bridge, watching as millions of evacuees streamed away from Mavros. The Akkadian armada loomed ever closer, their weapons already firing on the outer defense platforms. Evacuations are complete, sir, Chen reported, but we're out of time. Elias nodded grimly. Initiate the wormhole sequence. Stolen separatist tech hummed to life, seeding both of Mavros's suns with quantum singularities. If his calculations were correct, the resulting supernova would obliterate the entire system, and the Akkadian invasion force with it. Sir, Chen's voice was urgent. We've got an incoming transmission. It's Commander Singh. Freya's face appeared on the screen, her expression a mix of triumph and horror. Captain, we've traced the supernova tech. It's the Akkadians. They made a deal with Zalara's group. Elias's heart made, so this was how it ended, with humanity forced to use the very weapons they'd sought to eliminate. We're out of options, Freya, he said softly. Get clear of the system. That's an order. As Freya's ship jumped to warp, Elias turned to his crew. It's been an honor serving with you all. Now let's give these bastards a send-off they'll never forget. The Peacekeeper's engines roared to life, rocketing towards the last evacuation transport. Behind them, Mavros's twin suns began to swell ominously. Just as the Akkadian fleet closed for the kill, both stars erupted in blinding fury. A wave of cosmic fire swept outward, engulfing ships and planets alike. Elias gritted his teeth as the shockwave hit, threatening to tear the Peacekeeper apart. When the sensors finally cleared, Mavros was gone. In its place, a rapidly expanding nebula of superheated gas and stellar debris. Of the mighty Akkadian armada, there was no trace. Elias slumped in his chair, the weight of what they'd done settling over him. A world destroyed, millions displaced. But humanity had survived. For now. As reports of separatist forces standing down flooded in, Elias knew the real work was just beginning. Somewhere out there, Zalara and her cabal were still at large, and he would find them, despite the toll. The Peacekeeper drifted in silent orbit around the smoldering remnants of Mavros. Elias stared at the swirling clouds of stellar debris, his face illuminated by the eerie glow. The bridge was quiet, save for the occasional beep of a console. Sir? Chen's voice broke the stillness. We're receiving reports from across the sector. The separatist forces, they're standing down. Elias nodded, his expression grim. At what cost, Lieutenant? Before Chen could respond, another voice cut through the somber atmosphere. Captain Hale, priority transmission from Admiral Novak. The hologram flickered to life, revealing Novak's worn features. Elias, I need you back at headquarters immediately. We have a developing situation. Hours later, Elias found himself in a dimly lit war room, surrounded by holographic displays of affected systems. Novak paced before them, her voice tight with impossibly strong fury. It's Zalara, she spat. Her cult provided the Akkadians with supernova tech. Now they've gone to ground, but we're getting reports of crude initiators spreading through the criminal underworld. Elias felt his stomach churn. How bad is it? Novak's response was cut short as alarms blared. A junior officer burst into the room, face pale. Admiral, we've lost contact with Outpost Sigma 9. The room erupted into controlled chaos as reports flooded in. One by one, fledgling human colonies winked out of existence, their suns prematurely ignited. Each time, Zalara's cult claimed responsibility. Weeks turned to months as Elias worked alongside Freya Singh, desperately trying to track the proliferating supernova cells. but they were always one step behind, arriving at scorched star systems and evacuated worlds. After another failed mission, Elias found himself in Novak's office. The Admiral's face was haggard, the weight of lost lives evident in her eyes. "Our deterrence has failed," Novak said quietly. "We need a new approach." Elias took a deep breath. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." He outlined his plan, to infiltrate Zalara's cult from within. Novak listened, her expression growing more troubled with each word. "It's suicide, Elias," she finally said. "Maybe," he agreed, "but it's our best shot at stopping this madness." Days later, Elias stood in a dingy spaceport, all traces of his former life erased. He caught a glimpse of his reflection in a grimy window, hair unkempt, stubble darkening his jaw, the perfect image of a disillusioned soldier. A hand touched his arm and he turned to see Alex Munoz, his partner both on and off the battlefield. Their eyes met, volumes passing between them in that silent moment. "Be careful," Alex whispered. Elias nodded, his throat tight. "I'll come back to you, I promise." With that, he stepped into the shadows, leaving his old life behind. 2 years passed in a blur of pirate raids and terror strikes. Elias worked his way deeper into Zalara's inner circle, each atrocity he witnessed hardening his commitment. He forged captured supernova detonators, biding his time. Then came the day he'd been waiting for. Zalara gathered her disciples on an abandoned world, preparing for their Ascension Day ceremony. Elias stood among them, listening as Zalara outlined her plan to ignite a chain reaction across multiple star systems. As the cultists began their unholy rite, Elias's hand tightened around the hidden communicator. He sent the signal, and chaos erupted as Freya's team launched their assault. Elias fought his way through the cyclonic defense rings, each step bringing him closer to Zalara. He could see her at the heart of the ceremony, her eyes wild with fanatical zeal. Their gazes locked, recognition dawning in Zalara's eyes. With a snarl, she lunged at him, and their final battle began.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.